Okay, so in this video we're going to evaluate some trig functions of special angles, and we're going to do this without a calculator. So to do this there are 4 steps that I'm going to walk you through. So maybe just pause the video for now and write these in your notes. They'll make more sense as we go over some example problems. But for now, just get them written down in your notes. So step 1, we're going to draw the triangle, or we're going to draw the angle in standard position. So for our first example, we're going to draw 30 degrees. So we start with our XY axis. We're going to draw 30 degrees. That terminal side ends us in quadrant 1. So there's my picture for step 1. Step 2, we're going to complete the triangle. And in my notes, I told you to draw the triangle so that one side is touching the x-axis. There are, a few ways to complete the triangle, but if you're trying to get one side to touch the x-axis, it's going to look like this. It's now a right triangle. Step 3, we're going to export the triangle, which basically means draw the triangle, and I want to draw it in the same orientation as my picture. So here I've drawn it, and you can see it's the same orientation as step 2. I'm going to fill in all the angles and sides. So from step 1 and step 2, that angle was 30 degrees. So that innermost angle is 30 degrees. It's a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So I can fill in the rest of my sides as root 3, 1, and 2. I mentioned to make note of any possible negative sides. Well, the root 3 is going in the positive x direction. The 1 is going in the positive y direction, so those are both positive, and the hypotenuse is always positive. So root 3, 1, and 2 are all positive. Last step is to evaluate the trig function of that innermost angle. That's going to be our reference angle. For this problem, I wanted the sine of 30 degrees. We know sine to be opposite over hypotenuse. So the sine of 30 degrees is 1 over 2. That is my final answer. I'll walk you through another problem. I'm not going to write every step of the way, but I am going to be drawing the picture. Let's do the cosine of 150 degrees. Step 1 is to draw the triangle in standard position. So here is 150 degrees. It puts me in quadrant 2. Step 2 is to complete the triangle so that one side of the triangle is touching the x-axis. Step 3 is to export that triangle in the same orientation. So here I am redrawing the triangle in the same orientation. My innermost angle is 30 degrees. That's because my original angle 150 was 30 degrees short of 180 degrees. Knowing that inner angle, I can fill in my missing sides It's a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So root 3, 1, and 2 are missing sides. If you look at your picture, root 3 is going in the negative x direction. So that side is negative. 1 is going in the positive y direction. So that is a positive 1. And the hypotenuse is always positive. I'm ready for step 4, evaluating the trig function of cosine with my reference angle as 30. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So for the cosine of 150, that's negative root 3 over 2. That's my final answer. Let's do a few more. The sine of 5 pi over 4. Well, to do this, we got to do a quick unit conversion. 5 pi over 4 converted to degrees is 225 degrees. So that's the angle I'm going to be drawing in standard position. If we draw 225 degrees in standard position, that puts us in quadrant 3. Step 2, let's finish that triangle, complete the triangle with one side touching the x-axis. Step 3, we export that triangle. 225 degrees was 45 degrees past 180, so that inside angle is 45 degrees. It's a 45, 45, 90 triangle, so I can fill in my missing sides as 1, 1, and root 2. If you look at your picture, both 1s are in the negative direction. Both the negative and y direction is negative x and negative y direction is seen here. So I have negative 1, and the hypotenuse is always positive, so I have positive root 2. Now it's time for step 4. Let's evaluate the sine of that inner angle. Well, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so that's negative 1 over root 2. I don't want a radical in my denominator, so I have to rationalize this answer. My final answer is negative root 2 over 2. One final problem. Let's do a negative angle. The cosine of negative 60. If I draw the angle negative 60 in standard position, that puts me in quadrant 4. Step 2 is to complete the triangle with one side touching the x-axis. Step 3, export that triangle in the same orientation. So here's that triangle in the same orientation. The inner angle is 60 degrees. Let's fill in those missing sides. What sides are negative? Well, 1 is going in the positive x direction, so 1 is positive. Root 3 is going in the negative y direction, so root 3 is negative, and the hypotenuse is always positive. Step 4, let's evaluate that. My reference angle is that inner angle. I'm doing cosine, which is adjacent over hypotenuse. So that's 1 over 2. That would be my final answer. So to help us with positive and negative answers, let's use a mnemonic that is used. So if you have your XY axis here, I'm going to fill in quadrants 1, 2, 3, and 4 with AST TC. So what these letters represent, they tell us which trig functions are positive in which quadrants. One more time, they tell us which trig functions are positive in which quadrants. So if you look at quadrant 1, quadrant 1 has the letter A. That's going to represent all trig functions are positive in quadrant 1. S is sine, so only sine is positive in quadrant 2. Quadrant 3 is T for tangent, only tangent is positive in quadrant 3. And C is cosine, so only cosine is positive in quadrant 4. Let's look at our answers. For this problem, we were in quadrant 4. We evaluated a cosine, so our answer should have been positive. It was positive 1/2. For this problem, we were in quadrant 3, where only tangent is positive. So our answer for a sine should have been negative. For this problem, we were in quadrant 2, where only sine is positive. Therefore, we evaluated a cosine, and it should have been negative. And in our first problem of the day, we were in quadrant 1, where all are positive. We evaluated a sine, so it should have been positive. So feel free to use that mnemonic to tell you if your answer should be positive or negative.